135 Field Survey Squadron is unique inasmuch as there is only one Field Survey Squadron within the TAVR. Although its prime role is to produce maps and survey data, this film will show that the squadron is proficient in many other skills. A very important part of training, in a squadron that has to be completely mobile, is driver training, and a feature of the year is to get out and about as much as possible. Driver training takes place on at least 2 weekends in each month, and in order to move the 32 vehicles, there's always a necessity for people to be trained in the various classes of heavy goods license that are required to drive the tractors and their trailers, which together are as much as 30 tons in total weight. Training doesn't take place only on roads, but goes to special military centres, where driving can take place in the seclusion of a closed road. To drive one of these 4-tonners, an HGV Class 3 licence is required. All aspects of driver training are practiced, and the final testing is to exactly the same standard as for a civilian lorry driver. For these articulated vehicles, a Class 1 licence is required, and each of the trailers contains part of the mobile print train, which may have to be transported at very short notice to Germany in its field of action. The tractors and trailers, although some years old, still represent the latest existing vehicles within the British Army for the transportation of printing equipment. The square of a disused army camp provides the ideal location for the all-important manoeuvring practice. Corporal Watson tries out the forward manoeuvre. To driver skill has to be to a high degree of accuracy in order that vehicles may be placed in precise locations, as we shall see later, in their tactical location. The drivers themselves join the unit from all walks of life, and while 1 or 2 are professionals, the majority are learning to do something they would not normally do during the week. This is one of the facets of life within the TF. A more general weekend, involving all troops and corps, took the squadron to this training centre on the Kent-Sussex border. Here the main activity of a particularly fine weekend was exercise Make Haste, and as the name suggests, it was against the clock. Teams of 6, comprising as far as possible 1 man from each trade or corps within the squadron, are briefed by the Sergeant Major before embarking on a series of tests where time was the common enemy. It's part of the volunteers' requirement to be fit and alert, and to this end many exercises are arranged that will test all skills, whether it be that of sheer physical movement, such as being able to change a Land Rover wheel, or the ability to camouflage a vehicle so that it blends with the terrain. Whilst the volunteers to the squadron are essentially technicians, every technician has to be able to defend himself, and so weapon training is an important part of squadron yearly life. The ability to strip a weapon and reassemble it, making minor repairs and adjustments, is an important skill that must be practiced. As well as things physical and military, technical problems do arise, and so in a mixed society that occurs within a squadron such as this, the problem of measuring a gap without the ability of being able to cross it, such as a river, is a problem which devolves upon the surveyor of the team to organise his colleagues into devising a way in which this can be done. Although a geometrical method was intended, at least one team showed genuine initiative and tied a stone to the end of the string, hurling it across. Well, we did say it was a timed event. The ability of being able to send and receive a message by radio is another part of the squadron's facilities, and in order to encode them, a system of slidex is used. On this occasion, some people were seeing the system in use for the first time. From the smiles of satisfaction, this team, led by Sergeant John Burkitt-Wendy's, obviously got the right answer. Within the soldier's haversack, there exists a multitude of items, and we can assume that the water bottle did in fact contain water, but part of the test was to ensure that everything was there. The exercise over, the teams come in for debriefing. Who were the winners? Well, it doesn't really matter, but what is important is that everyone enjoyed that Saturday afternoon and learnt something new. Back on the road again, the squadron is off on another weekend. This time it's the annual range classification and a qualifying factor in the award of training bounty. Shooting is one of the more enjoyable military pastimes, and everyone has to be able to fire to a certain standard. On the 25-yard range at Purbright, the squadron classifies with the SMG, one of the two types of weapon used. The other weapon is the larger self-loading rifle, firing in ranges of up to 300 yards. Much of the activity, however, goes on behind the scenes. The accuracy of the shooting is the penalty of those working in the butts. Sergeant Thomas is in charge of the range today and is in contact with the firing point where the first details, under the supervision of the Squadron Sergeant Major, commence the practices that are part of the annual classification. Opportunities exist within the training for sporting shooting, as well as the necessary requirement for military qualification. And teams fire at Bisley in the National Shoot, as well as within the training centre itself, where .22 small bore rifle clubs are in operation. Snap shooting is an essential part of the quick response necessary for the modern soldier. And so ends another successful day on the range. There's just one occasion each year when nearly all of the squadron meet. This is, of course, at the annual camp. And on this occasion, it was held on the island of Guernsey. Sections of the squadron had made previous visits to Guernsey, preparing material for the new 125,000 map of the island. The map produced entirely by the squadron. The vehicles of the squadron also contain side tentage, which is used as office or sleeping accommodation, so that after moving, the squadron is a self-contained, viable organisation, having the facility to move, to work, to feed and to live. So, with a reasonable amount of comfort, the squadron can exist indefinitely in a mobile location. The tractors are removed from the technical trailers and electrical power is laid on. And even keys get lost sometimes. A great deal of water is required by a team of 100 men in the field, both for living and technical requirements. Electrical supply is from mobile generators that provide the power for all the technical vehicles and the accommodation area of the camp. This particular site was at the northern part of the island, called Les Armoreurs, and proved to be one of the most interesting locations for an annual camp so far. And within a very short time of our arrival, a quick look round might give one the impression that we'd been here for years. The semi-trailers make quite an impressive sight when viewed from the beach. And sometimes soldiers find their way into the wrong places. Those soldiers not accommodated within the print train itself are housed in normal 180-pounder tents. The whole set of vehicles can be likened to a mobile factory for printing and producing maps. Whilst on the island, the trig surveyors were able to complete a number of survey tasks for the states of Guernsey, and so, following a policy of training that it is better to do useful work when training, rather than training for training's sake, a number of state sites were surveyed. And here some of Trig Troop are carrying out levelling across sections of a corporation site using a theodolite. The squadron uses the very latest in equipment. Here we have an electronic distance measuring device. It's called a tellurometer, which has the capacity of measuring distances of up to 50 k's by means of a modulated radio wave. Visitors to the squadron come in large numbers on exercise. Chief of Staff, Brigadier McClellan, was an early arrival. And being a man very used to photography, he showed a more than usual interest in the camera. Brigadier Arthur Walmsley White, honorary colonel of the unit, spent several days. And certainly not least was Major General John Kelsey, the Director of Military Survey, who besides inspecting the squadron ceremonially, presented a number of good conduct and long service medals. Staff Sergeant Guys, WO2 Butcher, and Corporal Plant. Also on parade, Brigadier Walmsley White and Captain Martin, second in command of 135 Field Survey Squadron and aide to the General. One of the aspects of a unit such as 135 Field Survey Squadron within the Corps of Royal Engineers is its requirement to be able to practice some of the skills of other sappers within the Corps. And to this extent, sappers have always been concerned with the water. And being on an island situation, it was a wonderful opportunity to be able to practice some of the skills with dinghies and outboard motors. Here again, it wasn't just a question of being able to sail a boat. One has to be able to assemble, look after the kit, and ensure that absolute safety precautions are adhered to. And as can be seen, nobody sails without a life jacket, and good advice comes from all directions. These items of equipment are not normally held within the squadron, but are drawn specially from the stores for use on exercises or in practical situations. The Channel Islands provides one of the most spectacular coastlines for sailing and boating, and whilst it is necessary to resort to paddling in order to gain water deep enough to clear the depth of propeller, once the engine has been started, the benefit of speed can be seen. It was on the occasion of this annual camp that the new 125,000 map was presented to the island, and they were used in a practical content with a map reading adventure training type exercise, which was organised again on a competitive basis between teams of men within the squadron. And here the map, which was compiled, drawn and printed by the squadron, basically from air photographs and then from field checking, was tested in a very critical degree by members of the squadron not directly connected with these skills. And those sitting back rather complacently obviously know that the map must be right. Question number 26 was simply the big threat. It presented no problem to Corporal Dunn, who had plotted it and got the answer correctly. It has been said that the only real way to see Guernsey is on foot. On this day, it was more than proved. Points were awarded according to the distance from the start. Clermont Point, not to be visited, fortunately. And here we come on one of the three controls. Checking in here scored 50 points, as well as providing one with superb views of the western end of the island. And so the teams begin to trudge back to the finish. And as they come in, what might be termed the rerun takes place, and everyone finds out the answers to all the questions they didn't get. And so, on the Sunday of the exercise, the island came to see the people living in the new army camp that had sprung up overnight. and brought along by the publicity of the local radio and television and newspapers, they came to see the TAVR unit that had produced the New Guernsey map. The children certainly had the time of their lives in and out of the squadron's vehicles. A small but important attachment to the unit is the REMI team, who are responsible for the maintenance and repair of vehicles and the technical instruments of the squadron. And here, before an admiring crowd, they show how it's possible to recover a large tractor from an environment we hope it doesn't get into too often. Colonel Reg Wood, chairman of the London TAVR Association, paying a visit to the annual camp, while Staff Sergeant Wallace explains that on a sunny island such as Guernsey, the heliograph still has a use. And here are some of the trig surveyor's tools of the trade. And of course the OC, Major Joels, was here to greet the many visitors, both familiar and unfamiliar. The mobile workshop is an important part of the repair facilities held by the REMI team. And no doubt one or two new friendships were established as well. On this Sunday, one could indeed say it was 135 in all directions. During the day, over 3,000 of the islanders paid us a visit, and the interest that was shown was very rewarding to all members of the squadron. Back at Ewell, a feature of the autumn is the Armistice Day Parade. It's a very important part of the squadron life within the community of Ewell. Not only does it have the significance of the day itself, but it's a time when we see and are seen by the local populace. And this time we are lucky enough to have present Sir Peter Rawlinson, the local MP, among the many paying their respects on this Sunday morning. And of course among the many wreaths is the one from the squadron. The theme of the Lord Mayor's show is based on a military parade, and this year the various SAP units combined. And members of 135 formed a large part of the marching contingent in support of Lord Mays, the Lord Mayor. On the 25th anniversary, it was again Major General Kelsey who carried out the inspection and presentation of medals. Being the only squadron in the TAVR with this particular role, the members are automatically attracted from much of Britain. With a strength exceeding 100, it's not surprising that many live more than 50 miles from the Ewell HQ, while one or two travel considerably further. The celebration of birthdays is always an important event, and so the squadron celebrates its 25th birthday with this parade at the training centre, while the Band of Honourable Artillery provide music for guests who came not only from the many branches of the survey service, but also from the families and friends of soldiers serving in the unit. 25th birthdays are occasions to be celebrated with a great deal of enthusiasm, because it's not just the people who are seeing the squadron at this moment, but the many hundreds that have served in the last 25 years that have made it work. And so, in a resume of the year, whether it be driver training, shooting on the range, the adaptation of technical skills into coordinated teams, the ability for watermanship, or to take part in the Lord Mayor's show itself. These are just some of the highlights in a typical year's work in 135 Field Survey Squadron.